This is a Galactic Network podcast.
The Podcast of Terror is a great podcast. It's covering movies that are not for children, and thus this podcast is not for children. The hosts are two adults who will use bad words from time to time. They'll also spoil movies if that's not your thing. So if you don't like spoilers and you don't want to hear some dirty language or some dirty references to dirty parts of your body, then please, please, please wash your body parts better and do not listen to this show. If you can handle it, and I hope you can because there's a great podcast coming up, then please proceed with Podcast of Terror.
Burn and fire, burn the fire. Burn and fire, burn the fire. Welcome to episode 144 of the Podcast of Terror, production of the Galactic Network. For more on this podcast, including show notes, content information, subscription links, go to gncast.com/PoT. I'm your host, Matt Stein. Corey will be here shortly. This week, our guest is Saul Wordsworth, who's a British man. He is the creator of Alan Stoob, the Alan Stoob's True Crime Casebook podcast. Also, he has a hilarious Twitter, Alan Stoob, who's not Britain's premier Nazi hunter. We'll get into that one. But the Twitter is Nazi Hunter Alan. It'll be in the show notes, everything, as well as the links for his podcast. But should be a good one. He's a pretty funny fucking guy. Oh, God, he's nervous. Shouldn't you never be nervous? The British are always so cunning and suave.
That's just on TV.
Or charmingly befuddled.
Befuddled.
I've watched a lot of British pornography, and you guys always look real smooth.
Yeah, I think that's a preconception which you then project onto whatever you see, and it's not actually the reality of who we are. But
do the British call a cum shot a projection?
They do now.
They do now. Like, it just seems a lot classier than cum shot. Just be like, it's a projection. Just throwing it out there.
I was talking to a friend of mine last night who's an actress, and she made some joke about, but they're still shooting. Like, she'd left and they were still shooting. And I thought there was a really good joke in there about a porn film, how she'd left the shoot, but they were still shooting. But I didn't make it because I didn't want to offend the sensibility of the room. But I'm half making it to you guys.
So
now.
I can appreciate the fact that you took the time to think it through. Because the older I get, the better I started to understand, like, hey, maybe you should think before you just say dumb shit all the time. Because a lot of times I would just blurt things out, and then I get the oh. So,
yeah, I know that noise.
Yeah, so I appreciate your being an adult, I guess. But
it's difficult.
Since 1972, in fact. Well, actually, no, an adult since about 92, but, well.
No, it's difficult. This podcast is basically the worst things that we can say that we build up all week to doing, but then you go outside in the rest of the world and you're like, oh, shit, I'm not on the podcast right now.
Yeah. I mean, I hope... Have you started, Matt, or are you still not started?
No, I started. I started now.
Oh, okay. Because this is comedy gold.
Yes.
You don't want to be
that's why I'm glad I didn't miss it. I was at work, so my wife and I removed some carpet from our stairs. I don't remember if Nope, we did this Monday, so I didn't talk about this last week. The people who owned our house previously were the most disgusting people I've ever seen in my entire life. So when we were pulling the carpet off, it was tacked down to an obscene amount. Like, there was too many fucking staples. But every time it would let loose, it would just, like, jar at me, to which I could only describe as a dust bukkake. And I was telling someone at work about it, and they're like, maybe you shouldn't say that out loud. I'm like, yeah, but
Matt's been doing porn with World War II vets. And just...
What bukkake?
Oh, no, you don't know what bukkake is?
Yeah, actually, I did. That's just a joke.
Thank you. I was like, do I really have to explain to a grown man what bukkake is?
No. It's all right. My elderly aunt told me the other day, so we're all fine.
Oh,
did you want the visual explanation added, or do you want... We can send you scratch and sniff cards.
Everything's fine. I'm fully replete on the definition. I'm up to scratch, up to speed.
For anyone listening,
vis-a-vis Bukkake.
Yeah, for anyone listening,
you got me saying Bukkake so early. And was this like a bet? Let's get Saul to say Bukkake within 5 minutes of the podcast.
No, not at all. Usually, if it's within 5 minutes and we're talking about my balls, that's not uncommon.
Okay.
So now we're just talking about Bukkake within 5 minutes.
We say it 2 more times. We basically summon it out of a mirror in the bathroom, and it
Beetle Bukkake. Yeah,
I think if you say it 2 more times, there's some kind of FBI flag.
Oh,
right.
Or I get arrested, someone comes into my flat.
Well, I hope not.
I think not.
I'm trying really hard not to say it. Anyways,
we need to start a Reddit.
I can't continue the conversation without saying the word.
Hey, speaking of things that are hard to swallow, now that it's after Thanksgiving, I can officially open up my new Mountain Dew Merry Mashup flavor.
Your holiday brew.
That is my drink for this week. It is a cranberry pomegranate flavor for the Christmases.
So,
is this a sponsored podcast by any chance?
No, not at all. It's just I drink so much weird beer that Corey and one of our listeners have made it a point for me to talk about what I'm drinking.
Uh-huh.
So that's what Corey is starting to do right now because we missed it for a bunch of weeks because I was pretty drunk. So,
and I'm out of tea.
And he's out of tea.
So the dynamic, and forgive me because I should probably have taken this offline.
No,
because the listeners know this, but it's because I have listened to a few of them, but most of the time it's you two and a guest.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just the two of us. You and
we just stare lovingly at each other and we bukkake the screens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's just kind of a whatever the fuck we want to do on that day.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, or fortunately. So
I'm not hating this drink, by the way.
So I thought about this earlier. It's like I need to ask Saul about Christmas because
he's Jewish.
I didn't say that, man. Because you don't have the buffer of Thanksgiving in the UK. So here, basically, everyone, it's like as long as it is the day after Thanksgiving, Christmas music, Christmas decorations, everything is fine. But it's starting to creep earlier and earlier into November. So I don't know if in the UK, because you don't have Thanksgiving as a holiday, is it like November 1st? Is it then Christmas season?
We start putting them up on the 1st of June these days. It's getting earlier and earlier. It's not strictly true. It's not true at all, actually. But
I guess you don't have the 4th of July either.
Are you saying that your decorations, all American Christmas decorations, go up straight after Thanksgiving, or it's open season after Thanksgiving?
I'm saying that they shouldn't go up until the day after Thanksgiving. Christmas music should not start until the day after Thanksgiving. But
we were seeing Target putting up Christmas stuff before Halloween hit.
Yep, same with Walmart.
So you've kind of got an invisible line in the sand, at least, which we don't have.
Right. So I'm saying that you shouldn't start celebrating the next holiday until the previous one is concluded, regardless of the fact is if you're trying to sell toys to bratty fucking children.
I mean, I hear you, brother. I'm with you there.
Yeah, that's just my stance. I don't have kids. I don't decorate for anything because I'd rather play video games. But I hate fucking Christmas music. I just like, can I just let me get through Thanksgiving? Just let me eat turkey and pumpkin pie and deal with my family before Christmas music.
Now that's an interesting subgenre we could explore briefly. What about American Christmas music and songs versus British? What are your, like the 5 staples that you might have in?
Well, we don't wassail. We don't go wassailing. We don't have put.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either.
It's an old standard Christmas song. They let us go wassailing. I don't know what the fuck it is either. And I think a wassail is some sort of drink. Not a nog, but a like heavily brewed bullshit cider thing. One of the problems with Christmas music is not so much that we start playing it at a certain time of the year. It's the fact that it's the same 10 goddamn songs that it's just like every fucking pop singer has to put out a Christmas album or at least a version of a Christmas song that you've heard a billion times. And it's like, well, fuck, if I want to hear the song, I want to hear George Michael do it. I don't want to hear Teeny Bop 19-year-old do it. I don't want to hear Do They Know It's Christmas by anybody other than the original. But everybody fucking does it because it's not easy to get a Christmas song that is modern and still a hit. I think the last one to do it really was Mariah Carey. And to just have that constant beratement of like, and here's Jingle Bell Rock by 10, 15 different fucking bands or singers in a row. And it's like impeding my ability to breathe real air because it just pisses me off so bad.
But does that mean that you still hear like contemporary Christmas songs, or are you kind of steeped in the classics? And if that's the case, what are the classic Christmas songs that you hear over the airwaves in the US? Are they the same as ours? Because we've got the two that you cited, one of which three. There's Mariah Carey, George Michael. Did you say Do They Know It's Christmas?
Oh yeah.
Which is Band Aid. We've got Christmas Time in New York with the Pogues and Kirsty MacColl, to name but four. I mean, I don't know what your staples are. I was curious to know whether they were exactly the same as ours. That's all.
I don't listen to the radio, so the majority. I hate Christmas commercials, which are just as bad as Christmas.
It's still unavoidable, though, isn't it?
It is, because anytime you go into any store and you hear it. So even when I try to think of like what a Christmas, I think the Mariah Carey one's the only I can think of. Real quick though, wassailing. Wassailing is a house visiting practice in which people go door to door and sing and offer a drink from a wassail bowl in exchange for gifts.
Right, it's caroling, except you get rewarded by getting drunk along the way.
So you did know, after all.
I looked it up on the internet.
Or did you just Google that?
I Googled it. So wassailing is a beverage of hot mulled cider drunk traditionally is an integral part of wassailing. So I would wassail because you can get drunk.
Yeah, I told you. I knew what I was talking about.
I just wanted to fill in anyone who may be listening who is not sure what wassailing is, because we're not fucking 85 years old.
Well, two of us aren't.
Hey, whoa. No one knows how old you are, man. You're just out
Although
of yourself.
If you put us together, two of us are.
Two of us are, yeah.
Jesus.
And then some. You can edit that bit out.
Nah, I don't edit anything other than beer into my mouth.
That's true. That's the 3 beers.
There might be a piss break and more beer break in this one.
Yeah. So the commercials, probably a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, we saw our first sighting of the Hershey's Kisses bell ringing commercial. And Aaron, my wife, and I looked at each other like, fuck, it's already here. And a lot of the stations that we watch when we watch live TV already played the same commercial too many goddamn times in a half-hour period. And that's one of those things that beats on you, because it's just, we wish you a Merry Christmas, rung as bells over and over again all the time. And you just can't get away from that shit. And it's one thing to like, oh, it's that time of year when we get the classics back. But there used to be a time when the classics meant something because it wasn't throughout the entire fucking year. Mm-hmm. And that's been lost. And I go back to, I think I've said this before, maybe on the show, that when you could buy a Charlie Brown Christmas and when you could buy the old claymation Christmas specials of Rudolph and the Baby New Year or Santa Claus is Coming to Town, when you could go out and you could get those things on VHS and DVD or whatever, they became less special. You stopped having that moment of like, oh, on Thanksgiving is when we watch The Wizard of Oz, because that's when they play The Wizard of Oz every year. And on Christmas Day, they play Gone with the Wind or whatever. And those things, it used to be like you looked forward to that all year. And all of the specialness has gone away. And so now it's the day after Thanksgiving and some channel is playing A Christmas Story for 24 hours straight. Oh, no, 5 channels are playing A Christmas Story for 5 days straight. And it's continuously the de-evolution of what was a holiday to let's just pack the same shit over and over in front of people. and maybe their nostalgia things will bite a little bit, and that will get them to get off their fucking ass and go to the iPad and order shit from Amazon or from Walmart.com or whatever. But it's not a holiday anymore. It's not a Christmas. It's not a season. It's not a celebration. It's just mass consumerism. And I'm fine with mass consumerism, but it's also fucking annoying.
Word.
I was like, yeah, Corey's on a soapbox again.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Ivory Soap, the maker of strong soapboxes.
I guess before Corey gets back on his soapbox, I got we're not sponsored, but I have a pumpkin sour brewed by Collective Arts, which was disgusting and is already gone. New England APA from Untitled Art. And next I have the Collective Project IPA number 7. So I'll be good and very well lubricated before this is over.
Erdinger alcohol-free, well, it says that, 0.5% alcohol by volume. Refreshingly isotonic drink. I think that's a matter of opinion, but anyway.
Is it good,
Isotonic is gloves, isn't it?
Those are isotoners.
Oh, okay.
What are they? Are they the things that Jean-Michel Jarre wears during a performance, or should we just leave it there?
Only reason I know what isotoners are is because that's what Dan Marino is hawking in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
Oh. Good Lord.
Yep.
I need to... Yeah, you're obviously big on detail, Matt.
I'd only remember certain things.
Yeah, only from movies where people talk outside of their assholes.
Yes, because if you will eventually get into the Omen II, in which I got to the end and realized I didn't know what the fuck the movie was about. By
the end, you mean, or by the beginning?
No, at the end, I was like, what was the plot here other than the kid is Satan and he killed a bunch of people?
Yeah.
We'll get to it.
Is that you ushering in our conversation, or
no? Because we still need
more nonsense.
We still need to talk about Alan Stoob's true crime casebook here.
Oh, yes, we do.
Because we have not talked about
how commercially minded you are.
Exactly, because we have not even discussed Britain's premier Nazi hunter yet.
We haven't.
Now, and trust me, when I started listening to your podcast, my first thought was, I want to know what Saul sounds like in real life, because I did not imagine. Like, I assumed that there was some manipulation on your voice to get the Alan Stoob voice. I was pleasantly surprised at the fact that it's very easy to understand your accent. Because I know some British people who, I don't want to say they're a little more mish-mouthed, but they're a little more mish-mouthed, and it's hard as fuck to understand what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So thank you.
That's because I speak the Queen's English, Matthew.
When you said that you were from London, it made a lot more sense. You sound very proper. I can almost smell the tea coming off of your your throat. Your breath.
It's a facade, but thank you very much.
Well, that's fine. There's a screen in between us, and I've been drinking, so it is what it is. But yeah, let's talk about Alan Stoob.
Well, I mean, there are various threads to Alan Stoob, but he was an online creation initially, born of a conversation with some cousins at the tail end of 2011, where we were kind of riffing about jobs that were basically going out of style. And one of my cousins, Malcolm, I'll plug him there, or name check him, Malcolm. Hello, Malcolm. He, real name David. He said Nazi hunter, and I mean, really a light went on in my brain, and I, like the pompous oaf that I am, I raised a finger in the air, not anywhere else, and I said, "Watch this space," because I could feel a kind of character evolving within me. So I just took some time. I created a website purely for my own pleasure. Oh, it looks like Corey's got bored. He disappeared.
That's possible.
I'm here. I just turned off the video because I didn't want it to chop up anything.
I'm glad you said something, because it doesn't show that you're still in here. So I thought you were gone too.
Anyway, so this might be too much detail. But so I created a website. I then took the character to Twitter. He showed some early signs of being vaguely popular. I was just having good fun. I acquired a few celebrity followers. Then my partner, she said, "Why don't you write a book?" I said, "Good idea." She said, "Why don't you write a diary based on the character?" Which was a fantastic idea. I wrote the book, which was a great pleasure. The book got bought by a good publisher. The book was then optioned by, let's call him the late Brett Ratner, who, even though he's still alive, I think he's part of the Me Too movement, on the wrong side of the Me Too movement.
Oh.
Yeah, he also did X-Men 3, so that's a problem in and of itself.
Okay. Okay. Well, I've not seen that, but I mean, that wasn't why the film didn't get made. They just didn't happen. But that was lots of fun. But Alan kind of went into hibernation for the last 3 years for various reasons. But I've since had an idea, and we were talking before about true crime, Matt, and you said that your wife loves true crime.
Yeah.
Yeah, you say that with a really heavy heart.
Well, I mean, I too really enjoy true crime. Like, obviously you're familiar with Making a Murderer on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, which is just south of Manitowoc. So
wow,
if
you don't sound like them.
No,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. My grandmother did, though. She had a very we call it the UP accent, where you go up north or no.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a very thick accent like that. I thankfully, the more I drink, the more I sound like them, is what I've been told. But yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I completely fucking forgot why I started talking about this.
Making a Murderer.
Yeah.
True crime.
Oh, true crime. Yeah. So I love true crime. You know, Jeffrey Dahmer is from Wisconsin too. I spend a lot of time in Milwaukee, so like I've seen a lot, and it's very interesting to me.
He's a good guy. He's one of the good guys.
I'm sure he was a hell of a guy until he started eating people.
Yeah.
So it's like it's really interesting to me. It's just she watches so much that I was like, I need to distance myself a little bit.
So she watches rather than listens, podcast-wise, or both?
All.
The whole thing. Does it. She does true crime as well.
She might. And if she probably is watching, she watches the Oxygen channel. She is either watching football, American football, which she's doing right now, or watching the Oxygen channel. And if she's driving, she's listening.
You say that, Matt. She's actually standing right behind you with a knife. I can see that.
So luckily I can see my camera and I can tell that she's not behind me. Okay. She's really short, though.
I do love the idea that in Wisconsin you celebrate serial killers like you do local sports teams. Like you've got them. You've got to support the home guy. So yeah. Hey, we love our serial killers out here. They're so great, and what fun it is to be from a place where all these people were murdered horrendously.
It's because of the winters, man. If you've never lived through one, you don't even know what it's like.
I'm surprised we don't have more. Well, we took a while to catch on, but surprised we don't have more serial killers in Ireland, Britain. But so just to fast forward, true crime. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. True crime. There's one particular podcast I really enjoy called Case File True Crime, narrated by an anonymous Australian guy.
Yep.
You know that one?
Yep,
really?
Love it. Yep.
Anyway, quite addictive. And I thought maybe I should create a spoof true crime podcast. And someone said to me, "Why don't you do it as Alan?" And I thought, A, great idea, and B, shit. Because how can I do the voice of an 82-year-old man from Dunstable, England? Anyway, fast forward a month or two, and I did the voice of a man aged 82 from Dunstable, England. I fiddle around with the voice a bit, and don't know what to say. I've done it, and it was really good fun, and I've had a lot of fun with it, and good feedback, and I mean, fuck me sideways. They've been taking about 9 days a week to do. It's just so time consuming, especially with the writing of it, and then I'm recording it on Logic Pro X, the editing, the whole iTunes vortex. It's very anyway.
So what made you choose Dunstable? Because I didn't know that was actually a real place, but I'm now looking at it on a map.
Okay, so Dunstable. I mean, so there's a place next to Dunstable called Luton, which is known to be a dive, and it was officially named as Britain's crappiest town, I believe, about 10 years ago. So we know Luton is terrible, but it's a bit hackneyed. It's a bit too obvious to choose Luton as the as the focal point and the center point for Stoob. And I was brought up close to Luton, but not actually in Luton. I wouldn't sound like this, I'm afraid, if I was from Luton. But Dunstable is the next town along, so hence Dunstable.
Gotcha. Interesting. So, yeah, it's always weird to me, like how different the accents can sound, not being that far away. Like, well, I had mentioned before we started recording, we have friends who live in Sheffield, which is 3-ish hours north of you, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were surprised by the fact when my wife and I met, she lived on one side of the state of Wisconsin. I lived on the other, and it would take over 4 hours for me to drive to see her. And they're like, that's...
Is that because you drove really slowly because you weren't that into her to start with, or?
I hope she doesn't end up listening to this one, but no, that is not it. It was man, hold on, let me get my
It's just conversion. I know everywhere in the States is enormous.
Yeah,
everyone.
Oh,
present company accepted. Oh, he's going to cut me off. Oh my god.
Oh no! I'm working on it. It is roughly, I don't remember the exact, but it's roughly 300 kilometers between where I lived and where she was. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it was a 4 hour and 15-minute drive, give or take, going 65, 70 miles per hour, which is however many kilometers per hour.
You know what else that is? That's love, Matt. It's love.
That was, at that time,
sex.
Me really wanting to put my dick in a woman.
Uh-huh.
And now she ended up being pretty fucking cool, so I married her, and now we get a tax credit every year.
Lovely. That's a beautiful story, if I may say.
It's pretty good. Now we have 3 dogs, and yeah, we live in the middle of nowhere. It's real great.
By the way, I noticed that Omen II, quite a lot of it was filmed in Michigan. We can come on to that.
Was it really? I never knew that.
I Googled it after I watched it to find out if other people thought it was terrible too. But
wait. So you picked this movie and you thought it sucked? I guess this is how we're going to segue into it.
Well, if we am I done plugging Stoob? I probably am. Or shall I say the name of it?
Not if you're not done plugging Stoob. We will talk Stoob as long as you want.
I being British, I feel always slightly uncomfortable about plugging anything, so to speak. But
But the whole reason you're here is to plug what you do. Otherwise, why would you be here?
Oh well, that's very upfront.
Hey man, I'm not saying. When I go on other podcasts, part of it is to plug the things that I do.
Listeners of the show, the few, the far, the less than proud, will tell you it's sure as hell not to talk about the actual film that we're supposed to discuss.
No, we average about 15 minutes an episode.
Well, the problem I have is that it's not easy for me to reciprocate. I mean, I've only done 2 episodes of Stoob so far, but to date, it's only me on Stoob. I'm doing all the voices, and I was thinking of opening it up, getting other people on, but it's not going to be very easy, so I probably won't be on an awful lot of podcasts. But
no, you're welcome to come back whenever you'd like, regardless. If you ever need a really shitty Wisconsin accent, I got you. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
It's good. I like it.
Thank you.
So the podcast is called Alan Stoob's True Crime Casebook. It's available online.
There will be a link in the show notes for it,
and it's free.
Yes.
And is it any good, Matt?
I like it. Now, you have to keep in mind, I was 100% unfamiliar with Alan Stoob or your Twitter. I do not go on Twitter. It was because our mutual friend Jack Pacone put us in touch because you were trying to figure out the best way to host your podcasts. So that's how this whole thing came about. So when I listened to the first episode, I had no idea what I was into. But I did really like the subtle nuances of okay, so the most recent thing I can think of is at the end of The Nose when he's like,
you listen. I'm very pleased you heard the second one too.
I did. Right. So he's like, well, and then I went to this place, and then it plays the music. And he's like, well, this didn't turn up, so then I went to the library, and then it plays the music. And the fact that it was every time he went somewhere, you played that hunk of music, and I'm like, that stuff is subtle and funny to me. And that's what I enjoyed. And like in the first one, I think he was talking and he like, it was maybe a paragraph. It wasn't a super long, but he like burped or farted or something. And it was just kind of like little things like that I think are really funny. But I went into it knowing that it was supposed to be a comedy show or comedy podcast. I guess I could see someone not being that into it if they didn't know it. But most people aren't going to just listen to it not knowing the Alan Stoob character. With that being said,
of course, and
I enjoy it, and I look forward to the new episodes.
Great. I mean, maybe you can tell me this.
It's about 8 inches.
It's about what? Sorry,
8 inches. We're talking about my penis length, right?
Okay.
No. Okay.
I think I missed a crucial part of that. But we can always talk about it at the end. I was just going to say that. Does it help for me to call it True Crime, the True Crime podcast? Does that, or True Crime Casebook rather? Do people search for True Crime on iTunes, and would it come up that way, or is there no need for me? Is there no point in me doing that?
We're gonna find out right now. If I put in True Crime, where is
it'll be on like page 74,000.
It's probably gonna be pretty deep, but I think the whole Alan Stoob True Crime Casebook works in the concept of the character and what you're going for, because normally a true crime casebook, like who calls anything a fucking casebook? So it just kind of plays into the fact, and that's the way that I always thought it played into the fact that he's an older guy who's just all of a sudden like, I'm going to solve all these unsolved crimes because I don't want to be a Nazi hunter anymore. So I thought it just played into it. If you search true crime and go to all shows, Alan Stoob doesn't even show up.
No, I'm sure. And it's still new and so forth. So the only other thing perhaps I should add is initially I still thought, well, I'm going to document these fake true crimes, and just like in Case File. But then it dawned on me that, of course, Alan must solve the crimes. Yeah. Now that he's retired, he's got the time and background to solve them. So that then enhanced the comedy of it for me, anyway. But I think I've said enough about dear old Alan.
Well, and part of me was always interested, like especially with the nose. I'm like, well, how is this going to end? There's just someone who hated his nose.
I felt the same way, actually, until near the end. But I mean, it's certainly a labour of love, but it's been rewarding to date.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, Corey and I were talking before you came on, and it's like we haven't done this for 145 episodes for nothing. Mm-hmm. Like, there's at least some enjoyment involved.
You get £10,000 an episode. Is that right?
But yeah, mostly water weight.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Sure.
So I've said enough about my thing. Should we go on to the movie, or do you want? Is there AOB?
I don't know what you just said, but we can talk about the movie.
I said I'm through with Alan, but do you want to talk about any other business? Or
AOB is any other business. Okay, so you said AOB, and I'm like, I don't know what that is.
But actually, you did. It's just because I'm from near Luton that you didn't quite understand.
It wasn't that. It was I've never heard AOB. I've never heard any other business abbreviated as.
I think you said A or B.
Did you say A or B or AOB?
I said A. I thought I said AOB.
Okay, so you did. I had never heard any other business shortened to AOB.
Oh. Have you seen it written down as AOB?
I don't think so. I don't read much.
Oh.
Would it be on a toilet stall door?
Yeah. For a good time, AOB, call Chad.
Yeah, I've seen that graffiti.
Chad is very popular.
I haven't seen one of those in a while, but I also go to my own bathrooms or the one at work.
Well, also, graffiti in bathrooms has gone way down since the invention of smartphones.
Craigslist. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I can imagine that. I'm just taking you both through to my kitchen.
No, that's fine.
To get another near beer.
Yeah, if you need to do that. Which is kind of funny because near beers are generally like... You don't have like Miller Lite and stuff over there, do you?
I don't know. Well, what's Miller Lite versus Miller?
It's just the light version of like Miller Genuine Draft.
But like, oh, I see.
Yeah.
We don't tend to have lower calorie beers. We just have.
I've heard. But anyway, we generally those are referred to as near beers because they're lower.
Well, I call this a near beer because it's nearly a beer, but not really. It's an isotonic drink that you drink with special gloves on.
Isotoners, yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
What is it that you're having that is not quite a beer?
Myself?
Yeah.
So it's Erdinger, who also they're a German brand. They also make ordinary beers, but I'm drinking a non-alcoholic version of it.
Okay, so it's an actual non-alcoholic beer. Yeah, which is when I grew up, that was what a near beer was.
Okay.
We were walking through our grocery store the other day, and there was an end cap that had LaCroix all over it. And I was trying to describe what LaCroix was to my wife, and I was basically like, it's like a strawberry took a gentle piss into a babbling brook, and then someone canned it. Because it's just an essence of the most annoying flavors. And I can't think of anything that's like, oh, it's not a soda because fuck soda, but it's just a hint of bullshit, and that's kind of what near beer was to me. It was like, hey, I hate all the taste of alcohol, except for the fact that it gets me drunk. As a teenager, that was the whole point. It's like, sure, give me this thing that tastes just god awful, but it won't have the only thing I want from it, which is the effect.
Funnily enough, I'm really drawn to the taste of these beers.
No, I get it.
They do it for me.
The one thing that I really miss from alcohol, because I haven't drank in 20-something years, is whiskey sours. I love whiskey sours, and there is not a non-alcoholic equivalent of a whiskey sour that I am aware of. And that's like the whole thing. It's like I cannot drink booze, but I miss this one really boozy thing. I also like Long Island iced teas, which I guess is why I drink iced tea all the fucking time.
Yeah, I mean, to start with, when I stopped drinking, I would, if I was in the pub, I'd drink Coke or, fizzy water, and it got really boring and I didn't feel part of anything socially. But since I've started drinking non-alcoholic lager, I'm back in the gang.
So have you never been a drinker?
Yeah, I have. I actually stopped about a year ago.
Okay.
Kind of for a number of reasons, but I think I'm gonna. Lots of people have a dry January in this country. Yeah. I'm planning on quite a wet one.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna return and have the odd drink and see where I go with that.
Yeah, and that's like there's no judging, nothing. That's not where I'm going with this. It's just I've gotten to a point like I like beer and I like gimmicks. I really like gimmicky food. I like gimmicky beer. Like the more shit you can put into something, the more interested I'm going to be. Like Burger King had a crispy chicken with bacon, a Whopper patty, like onions. There was some sauce and it was on a green bun and it was supposed to give you nightmares. And I'm like, I got to fucking eat this thing. So that's what I'm into. It's like, give me a beer. Like I had a beer the other day that it was made peanut butter, graham crackers, marshmallows, and chocolate, and it was like 15%. I'm like, this is fucking great.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just a lot of flavors. So
it sounds a bit lumpy to me.
It was thick. Beer? It was like drinking motor oil. Mm-hmm. I mean, all the sugar in that stuff breaks down during the fermentation process, so it just comes out as a really thick beer. But
do you have it on toast or just drink it?
Straight out of glass, man. I had to split it with 3 other people because I was during Blackout Friday. That's what I started Blackout Friday with, was a 15% beer.
Oh.
But that's kind of the thing, is if I go to a restaurant, I don't want to order stuff that I can make at home. Right. Although it is really simple to go in there and just like get a burger because, well, it's a fucking hamburger and at least it's safe. It's probably the safest thing on the menu that you kind of know what you're getting. But I feel you on that, is that the reason I started drinking iced tea is because when I gave up, well, I'd already given up alcohol years before. I gave up soda, that they're just coming and refilling water all the time. So I get an unsweetened iced tea, which is just fucking dirty water. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I at least felt like, okay, I'm paying my $2, so I'm getting the attention. On the other hand, I'm paying $2 for just dirty water when I could have gotten the water for free and gotten the same kind of service as refills and stuff. So why am I paying this extra money for something that isn't really giving me anything of benefit beyond it, and also goes towards the tip?
Mm-hmm.
Shut up, Corey.
Fuck you.
I was just thinking, there's a burger place in Chicago that has the most gimmicky burgers. Everything's named after a band, and there's just everything you can think of. Like I mentioned, it's Thanksgiving, or was Thanksgiving. So it's a turkey burger with fried stuffing on top, turkey gravy, and like a sage leaf on top. And that's a burger. So it's like I went there and then drank a peanut beer. So it's like I just had gimmick upon gimmick. So fucking good.
I had the largest burger I've ever consumed today. It was a homemade burger at some friends. It was. I've not eaten anything since. I had it about 1:00. It's now 9:15 in the evening.
How many kilograms was it?
Sorry?
How many kilograms was it? Is that what you guys weigh in?
Yeah, it was 30 kilograms.
Let me get the converter.
No. I don't know what it was, but it was really large.
Oh, I mean, it was like 30 kilograms is 66 pounds.
I'm joking, but it was like it was a good fist's worth for sure. Maybe a two-fister, if you will, so to speak. Now let's move on. Now,
thank you.
Here we go.
That's the thing that I'm kind of picking up, is when I make burgers for my wife and I make relatively, at least probably a third to a half pound patty and cook it up. But I'm finding that it makes more sense to do a thinner patty and just have two of them, because you get more of the char on it, the Maillard principle. And that's what the flavor is. And it's harder to cook a fat patty all the way through as it is. So unless you're a person who really likes that rare beef inside, right, it's a pain in the ass. But
have either of you ever heard of Loco Mocha? I believe it's a Hawaiian dish, but it's just white rice, a burger patty, brown gravy, and a fried egg.
Oh, yeah, I think they serve that. There's this Hawaiian chain of restaurants where I was in California that I did not really enjoy because it was almost all spam, but I think they had that there.
Yeah. I had it for the first time in Las Vegas not that long ago, and I made it earlier today. It's really fucking good.
Mm-mm.
I mean, if you're into that, I'm not. A lot of my coworkers will make fun of me because I will just like microwave a bowl of ground beef and eat that for lunch with some broccoli. But you got to hit those.
You're microwaving it to cook it, or you're reheating it?
No, I'm reheating it in a microwave.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
No, that's exactly right, though. And that's the other part, is that when I get to it, I would probably prefer a sloppy Joe or a loose meat sandwich or taco meat in general, because of the same principle. It's all cooked through and everything, and then I'll make tacos one night, and then I'll have taco meat for the next couple of days left over, and just be able to go and grab that and throw something together really fast.
You got to hit those macros, bro. I can't imagine either of you had any idea what I just said there.
Not a clue.
Your macronutrients, you got to get your protein, your carbs. I lift weights. That's all right.
I'm shaking my head.
I can see.
Well, I mean, I'm shaking. Do I mean nodding?
You're nodding.
I'm nodding. I'm nodding along. Yeah. But then I realize that's no good in an audio podcast. So
it doesn't matter. It's like when I pause the entire show to start Googling things. It is what it is.
Like you pause. You just let your hammer hands hit the keyboard right there next to the microphone.
Because I have the world's loudest keyboard. Don't worry about me. Anyways, should we talk about Damien? Omen II? Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So what's the first one called? Just the Omen?
Yeah.
Damien Omen II.
Yeah, which I thought was very strange. I always thought it was Omen II, And then when I was looking for it, it was Damien Omen 2, because what is Omen 3 isn't anything. I think it's just the Omen 3. Yeah, it's Omen 3, the final
I think the
conflict.
Omen 3, the Book of Mormon is...
Oh, God, I love the Book of Mormon. I have not seen the Omen 3, but we're also not here to talk about that. I hope it's... I don't know if it can be any worse than this one, but...
I think I have a long time ago. So, so the Omen 2.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Corey, can you recap this? Because we all know that I don't know what the fuck happened.
This one's kind of tough. From people who remember, which is not Matt, when we discussed the original Omen not too long ago, some well-to-do couple had a baby, but the baby was actually switched at childbirth with the child of a jackal, and they raised it as their son unknowingly, and that thing started to develop powers because it was the Antichrist, and everybody around it either was trying to protect it or trying to kill it. And as they were trying to kill it, they would meet untimely, horrific demises, either pikes coming down from off of churches going right through somebody, or a plate of glass, which is probably still my favorite kill from that and freaks me out still to this day because it's how I think I'm going to die. Plate of glass going through somebody's head off of a truck. I had a fucking wheelbarrow fly at me from a truck once. And so it finishes off with the mother is killed. The father gets killed trying to stab the child Damien with a whole pack of ritual knives in a church. And the kid goes off. And in this movie, we find out that he's been raised into his now teen years with some brother or sister or cousins of the family. I don't know. Fuck these people. And the same sort of thing happens where the kid has not picked up that he's the son of the devil yet. But he keeps looking at people and they freak out and run in traffic or get attacked by birds or any number of things. So part of it is that the kid has powers. He looks at people and he can make them freak out and start slapping themselves in the face. He looks at people and they go running away. But he doesn't know about his abilities so far, and a lot of stuff just seems to happen because you walked into his purview, or even if you're just discussing him. So we get the one character that was in the first movie that survived, comes back at the beginning of this one, meets up with some other dude, and they're like, hey, yeah, the Antichrist exists. Let's go look in this cave and see his picture. And they go and do that, and of course the cave starts crashing down on them, and they both die. Nothing really to do with Damien himself. He's not there. He doesn't cause it. Shit just happens.
Yeah.
And that's a problem that I have with this movie going along, is that a lot of times stuff just kind of happens without anyone really instigating it. Yeah. If at some point we had seen one of the people who was kind of like protecting Damien causing some of this, I would buy into it a little bit more.
And also sometimes the Raven is present. Sometimes it's not. Yeah?
In the last movie, in the first movie, I mean, he's protected by hellhounds, by a bunch of fucking Rottweilers or whatever. And in this one, it's a bird, and the bird just starts... One bird takes this woman out on the side of the road and just, like, beats her all the fuck. And then she goes and runs in front of a truck, although jumps up at the last second and flies over the cab of the truck. I didn't understand how that worked. But this is a lot of this movie is just, hey, I think that kid's the son of Satan. Oops, I'm dead. And next person shows up and is like, hey, did you know that your nephew is the son of Satan? Nope. Well, sorry, gotta go. I'm dead. His grandmother is like, you should have killed that kid, and she's dead. And constantly, like, this fucking family is like, wow, we know a lot of people who died this month. Is something going on? Nope, can't be. Nope, fuck it. And just closing their fucking eyes to everything. So the dad of the family, and by the dad, I mean, Damien's got a cousin who's his best friend he's been raised with since he came to live with him years ago. They're both in military school together. The dad and the mom taking care of him. The dad works for this company this is the part that I had a little bit of trouble kind of keeping up with. He works for this company, and this company has a guy that works there that is trying to introduce this stuff that is questionable morally, not quite outside the bounds of the laws yet. But you can tell, like, this guy is trying to make something happen where it's going to introduce chemicals and stuff as a replacement for food stuff for the poor in places where they don't really have protections against it. And it's going to make them a fortune, I guess. But it's like the science isn't down yet. And it's really fucked up. But everybody else in the company is like, hey, that's really fucked up. But Jeff just died. So now Jeff doesn't say it's fucked up anymore. So there's obviously a bigger plan that goes to getting Damien power over this corporation. But we don't see that happen in this movie. This is a middle film in what is a trilogy. Technically, there's 4 films because there's an Omen 4, I think The Prophecy, that is about his sister. But that doesn't really have much to do with the rest of it. But in this movie, it's just the realization of Damien, like, oh, I'm really fucking cool because I can get rid of everybody who pisses me off. And my cousin just died randomly from some head trauma in the woods that I was there for, but I didn't touch him. And now I've got 2 dates to the prom.
It's interesting that he actually starts the film as a delightful young man, if I may say, with no knowledge of his nefarious powers whatsoever.
Yeah, but his grandmother does not like him, or their aunt or whatever. Yeah. She's like, man, that guy, you're a little dick. And he's like, what did I do? I came in here and said goodbye to you. But it's the final goodbye, bitch, and just walks off.
I mean, it's interesting to me because watching it now, I don't think I've seen it for a long time. It just seems like a series of set pieces.
A series of unfortunate events.
Series of unfortunate events and set pieces and trying to create unpleasant, gory ends for anyone who comes up against Damien. However, I remember the film, not necessarily even having seen it as a child, in the playground, and it was talked about endlessly. And I think if you were, 10 years old in 1978, which I wasn't, or I think it was repeated endlessly in the UK all through the 80s, it was a really big deal, and I think kids loved it. I could see why kids loved it, but as an adult, I thought it was weak.
The visual imagery stands out of the different kills, and that's what it gets from the first one. But the first one I felt had more of a plot around it, and this is just those images. Like the scene with Meshach Taylor getting cut in half in the elevator because I guess he didn't win the chocolate. That was a big deal scene. There was a lot of stuff that was very visually like,
sure,
oh shit, but
kind of iconic in its way. But as a film, the first one is a really memorable supernatural thriller, and this is nothing like that.
Yeah, we don't get to the bottom of Lance Henriksen kind of grooming him, being part of whatever affiliate religion thing that is keeping him alive as his instructor.
You know all these names,
right?
Corey.
Well,
Corey's good.
Well, I knew Lance Henriksen is pretty fucking big deal. I mean, after Aliens and Pumpkinhead and a bunch of other stuff. I mean,
I never saw that. I'm afraid.
Definitely watch Aliens. Watch him as Bishop. I keep wanting to get back to his X-Files spinoff Millennium at some point. But all these people that are obviously they're part of it. It's kind of like a spread out version of the neighbors in Rosemary's Baby. It's like there's all these people who are there to kind of push this thing along and to press the expectations of like, we got to keep this kid protected. And as it turns out at the end, his aunt, who has now seen her son die, is part of it too. And she's like, I always belonged to Damien. She had a really weird, close relationship with this kid. And then he's like, yeah, you were great. By the way, I'm going to burn you in fire now. Just because probably again, the end game is for Damien to get control of the money, to get control of the power of the organization, the corporation that the uncle works for. It's for him to be put into a place of power for what comes next. But all this is it's a stepping stone to get to the end of this story. And like you, I've never seen the third part. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if he wins or loses or starts a dance troupe and goes on tour with Channing Tatum. I just know that in this, Damien's an asshole and will gladly look at somebody and kill them. But most of the time, they're just dying without his fucking help. So what purpose does he actually serve? We don't get that answer.
No, I mean, it does occur. There are parallels with certain Mr. Trump. You could replace Damien with Trump and take it on to the third part. And
I thought about that the whole time. I really thought about that the whole goddamn time. It's like, I came from this place of privilege and just thought I was cooler than everybody else, and everybody who got in my face, I just called them assholes or screamed fake news at them or something. Yeah. I agree. I definitely thought that. But Trump at least there's not a boring middle section in what Trump is doing. He never lets you down as what he's doing is interesting. It sucks, but it keeps you enwrapped in tension. This didn't have that.
No.
I thought the actor was good, though. I thought the kid who played Damien was really well suited towards this part, just like the kid who played him in the first movie was. The other thing is that these movies were not that far apart in years, but they do a time jump in the age each time that is pretty significant. So in the first Omen was 1976 or
76.
So 2 years later, he's now a teenager from being like 5 or 6 years old and losing his nanny in the first one. And then the next one, I think, is just a couple years later, and he's already an adult. So I don't know what the story is as much on that one, but it's still like, at least they had a plan going in of, we're going to go from this to this to this and make that work. But it's still like, okay, I don't know. I look at this and I remember it because I saw it as a kid, and it was very affecting as a kid, and seeing the things happen to these people gets you, it hits a moment of like visceral emotion. Watching it, like the guy who fell through the ice, I remember that scene so much.
Yeah.
And him just falling into the ice, and that was like, I'm never going skating. But I did say to my wife, this is why hockey is a cooler sport than football, because you potentially will just die. You will just die in so many different ways. But it doesn't add up. And I think as I was watching it, all I was thinking about was, have you ever seen any of the Final Destination films?
I think I saw the first one.
Yeah, so the Final Destination films is a lot of gruesome death scenes done in a similar way. There's something acting out against the person and makes them die, but it's all the machinations of it that makes it interesting. But at least there's a calling as to what's doing it. And in this case, it's they've cheated death, and so death is like, you don't get away with that shit. I'm coming after you no matter what. And because you missed your first time getting pulled out, I'm going to make it worse and worse the longer you go. It's going to become more gruesome. And this movie does that same sort of thing, but you don't see what's causing it. You don't have a feeling as to why it's happening other than the fact that it's to protect this kid. But is it the kid with the powers that's doing it? Is it Satan protecting his kid?
Yeah.
And that's what I think it's missing from a story perspective.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think there wasn't a clear narrative in that direction, although I don't think one should get too hung up on that. I think generally the story lacked any real narrative thrust and drive, coherence, and no nuance, and certainly no real meat to it. As I said, it just felt like it was playing out as a succession of set pieces, whether they got so much feedback about the beheading in the first one that they thought we're just gonna go for a number of excruciating, horrific deaths, and that can be our film.
Yeah, and you never feel, there was never one person who was like, I'm the one who's trying to take Damien down. So none of them really work as a character that you've built up like, oh, this is the one who's going to do it. And there's no like final struggle between two. You wait for the dad to be convinced, like you had the dad get convinced in the first one. But that's it. And so much of the time, it's like every person who's supposed to be along the way of like, oh, I know what Damien is, they immediately die as soon as they start showing any kind of suspicions. Yeah. Here's the doctor. He's like, hey, you've got jackal DNA. Well, that's kind of weird. I'm going to call downstairs and go show this to somebody, and then immediately dead. And in fact,
sorry, Corey, it just occurred to me that the journey between the beginning and the end of the film is almost zero. I think they're killing time. I don't know if you said this already. They're killing time. They've already had the idea for the third one. When he's an adult. They're just treading water in the second one.
Yeah, it's like if you went from Star Wars to Return of the Jedi, and in Empire you didn't spend any time in Dagobah. You didn't spend any time like avoiding the Star Destroyers in the asteroid field or any of that shit, and it just went like, hey, we're just here hanging out on this Hoth planet, making cocoa and talking shit about, wasn't it weird when Darth Vader was like just killed Ben and Ben disappeared in the ether, and you never get an I'm your father scene. It's just same bullshit stretched out for 2 hours to get you to number 3.
I saw Star Wars when I was 4. That's the only Star Wars film I've ever seen. So that's just a sidebar. You can hate me for that if you like, but
not at all.
But yeah, absolutely. It's just an exercise in killing time, getting you into, the third film, which I think is Damien as an adult in the Trump role. Full Trump. He's gone full Trump in the third one.
Holy shit, he really has.
How was your pee, Matt?
It was fucking terrific. I had to stop and talk to my wife.
I heard your wife scream just before, I thought.
No, that was Matt. That was glass shards coming out of his...
It's just me. At my age, it burns when I pee. Yeah, I didn't realize...
That's how you know it's working.
God damn it, Corey. That's how I know I'm alive. I didn't realize that that's the guy who plays Damien in the third one is that guy, whose name I can't find. Neil?
I don't know who it is. God damn it. I can't remember.
I seem to remember being someone kind of famous. Was it like Sam Neill or something? Or
I think it is Sam Neill. But yeah, I also didn't realize that he's like the fucking president.
Is he? He's actually the president.
I don't know if he's... God damn it. No, I've
done it. Is he lined up for the presidency at the end of the film? God, it's...
I like I said, I've never seen it. The picture is just him in front of the presidential seal. Is like the movie poster.
They go for a like Manchurian Candidate kind of thing.
I believe so.
Gosh.
Shit.
I watched a creature feature last night, and it was a werewolf movie with Dean Stockwell, who played Al in Quantum Leap. And he wasn't the president, but he worked really closely with the president. So the president kept trying to protect the interests of the presidency by not wanting to take care of this werewolf that is obviously going around and killing people. But it's like you'd see this guy standing in a boardroom talking to all the attorneys general and the president and some other people, and then all of a sudden his hands would turn hairy and he'd go running out and he's like, I gotta go murder someone. And that seems more like the current administration here in America than anything.
Corey, I appreciated your plural of attorney general then.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I noticed that attention to detail.
Corey's pretty good at stuff.
Attorneys general, like gins and tonic.
Gins and tonic. Well, there's multiple gins in there, is there not?
Or guess if you can have gins and tonics.
You could.
You get 2 doubles. Anyway.
Yeah. Gins and tonic is basically a bukkake video.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, we're back to bukkake. Full circle.
Anyway,
full circle jerk is what you're saying.
Try and steer clear of the bukkake conversation again, Corey. I've already done it once today.
Yeah, but I like to bring things back. I always try to...
I haven't hit my 20-minute refractory period, so it's still a little sensitive.
Well, you did just pee, so at least you cleared the urethra out.
I did.
What did you think of the movie, Matt? I'm taking over the MC role.
No, that's fine. Someone has to, because normally it's not me. I thought this movie sucked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really upset that you made me watch it. I got up extra early to watch it, and it was not good.
Well, I wouldn't have chosen, because I chose the first Omen film.
So if I wasn't jackass...
if I may say, in good faith, it wasn't on your list of films that you'd already watched. And I thought, good choice. And then you said, well, we've already seen it, so it wasn't on the list.
I fucked it up.
So then there was a logical progression. It took me about a week to come up with Omen 2.
No, that's fine. Every new email I sent you, I felt progressively worse and worse about, because I'm like, this guy fucking hates me.
I didn't hate you. I just disliked you for a while.
Yeah, see, and I don't blame you one bit. Most days I don't even.
It's kind of difficult when you look at the list, because I noticed that you. In fact, was it your last but one podcast was The Shining?
Yeah, we just did The Shining.
That's so
now
one of my all-time favorite films of all time.
Now let me defend that. The reason that we had it, our guest 2 weeks ago finally picked The Shining. So when Corey and I started doing this, we purposefully did not do certain staple horror movies, knowing that guests would ultimately pick those movies.
And we're still doing that. We're still, before we started talking about, started doing the show tonight, we were talking back and forth about what we're going to do next week. And there are movies that we avoid because we want someone else on here to either give a different perspective than us. And we're a couple dicks who shouldn't really be reviewing movies. Or we want someone to be able to choose the thing that means the most to them as far as horror movies go, to get that option. And we can pick through anything. We've watched movies about demonic Easter bunnies, and we don't give a shit, because we'll just sit here and bullshit through the show anyway. But someone else gets to choose The Shining. Someone else gets to choose The Omen. Sure. And that's the way that it should be. You could have gone into the direction of, all right, well, then we'll do the Omen remake, which I had even told Matt. Right. And we could be laughing about Liev Schreiber and Julia Stiles right now.
No, that would have been a bridge too far, I think, even for me. But actually, I mean, although I've obviously put you through hell for watching this, or relative hell for this.
No. I've watched some shit movies doing this show.
But you, unbeknownst to yourselves, you've put me through hell myself. Not only have I had to watch this, but having listened to or being inspired after listening to your Psycho 2 podcast a few weeks ago, which is when Jack first hooked me up with you. Yep. That inspired me to watch Psycho 2 online, and I'll never get those 2 hours back. Anyway, we don't need to go over that film now, but we could put an hour aside and re-review Psycho 2 if you like. I was going to say something about the music, because I have a penchant for horror soundtracks, and I used to buy them when I was younger, and I do have, things like, of course, Halloween, John Carpenter, but also I've got somewhere, I haven't listened to it in a long time, but I've got the Omen soundtrack, Jerry Goldsmith, and I believe he won an Oscar for the first Omen movie, the music.
I think so, and deserves.
It's great. The music's outstanding. Without the music, it's a real punctuation point. Anyway.
No, I agree. And the first one has a lot more gravitas as far as the lead actor and everything, and it holds up better because it seemed like a substantive film. Yeah. This could have been. And there's all the elements there. I don't think anybody who was in this did a bad job acting at all. I think anybody who was in this film should have potentially gone on to bigger and better things following it up. But I don't think they did, because the film fails in giving you an actual story. And that's too bad. And I remember this movie a lot because as a child, I watched it. It was on cable. I saw, I think, like a couple other things, I saw this before I saw the original. When we did Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 last week, I had seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 because it was appropriate around the time that I was at the age where I could stay up and watch horror movies late. I would watch that all the time. It was on cable. I didn't see the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre for years after that. I saw Jaws 3 a bunch of times without seeing Jaws. I remember seeing this movie. Plus, it was kind of age appropriate to me. The kids were about the same age as me when I saw it. And so it felt like it was attuned to a preteen kid watching a horror movie and how the relatability of those characters would have been. But it's all visual cues that I remember nothing else about it. And watching it now, it's disappointing. But
I think it's perfect for kids to watch because it's so visual. There are so many these memorable scenes, and it's also kind of exciting because it's gory, and you're probably too young to watch it, and that's exciting in itself. And you're 11 and you should be 15, and that sort of stuff.
I did kind of like the fact that there was no actual gore. A lot of the kill scenes were all they kind of just left it to the imagination.
Well, you mean in the second one?
Yeah.
This one,
yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, aside from the man cut in two in the lift, but you're right that they're not.
But even that wasn't a ton of blood and.
No, you do see his spinal column. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
There is that.
Yeah, so that guy went on to be Hollywood in Mannequin, and then was on Designing Women for the entire series, I think. Meshach Taylor, this was his first movie, and what a different role for him compared to the flamboyant character that he plays in kind of predominantly after this. But that scene really is a heavy scene. Watching it happen, because it's a slow scene to happen. You see the elevator starting to crash down, and you think, okay, so the elevator's going to fall and he's going to crash and hit the ground and die that way. And it just takes it to that next level by having that cable come down at him when it seems like he should have survived. And that's part of it, is that if any character had survived the attack and then followed up and gone after Damien, but it's just the same plot of the first one of the dad finally becomes convinced, goes to get all the knives, tries to use the knives to kill Damien, and in the end, nothing fucking happens because he dies instead.
You said that the guy on the lift, it was his first film, right?
Yeah, Meshach Taylor.
Do you mean that he didn't actually die in real life? I'm a bit confused.
No, they put him together. Willy Wonka flew him into the sky, and Oompa Loompas restitched him up.
Oh, okay, that's good. It's funny actually. The couple. So it's William Holden, and I don't know the name of the actress in the second one, and the first one is Gregory Peck. They're a kind of obviously Holden is the brother to Peck, but they're a duplicate couple from the first one. They've just rehashed the formula and the format and the look of the people.
Yeah, and the only thing that changes from the first one to this one in the couple is that the mom is in on it this time, whereas the first one she's one of the ones being tormented the most, and so that I guess is the twist. But then immediately after we get her betrayal to the husband to say that she belongs to Damien, she dies. And so anything that could have been potential from that is wiped out. So there's no sense of gain in learning this about the character. It's like, here's a big reveal and fuck it.
I just think they were running out of time.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I guess it meant that she does away with Holden rather than him escaping her clutches, and then she's gone. But then it ends about 2 minutes later. Maybe they ran out of money. I mean, I wonder how far along they were in the planning stage when they made Omen, whether they had a second one in mind, or whether based on, I don't know how successful it was, but whether the success of one prompted two, and I mean, it was out pretty quickly, whether the process was a little bit hurried, or I have no idea.
I'm looking. I expected that statement to go on a little longer.
Well, I'm going to say in the late 70s, kind of not a new concept, but was unusual. We weren't having every movie became a franchise yet. Yeah. So we hadn't had Halloween 2 yet, I think. We probably hadn't had a second Friday the 13th at this point.
Rocky 2, about the same time.
Yeah, maybe. So it was kind of like, yeah, The Omen did really well. Let's follow up. And they probably didn't know that they were going to be able to make a trilogy of these movies. They probably just went and made The Omen and were surprised by the success and pushed immediately.
It bears mentioning that there's 5 Omen movies. There's not only 3.
Ooh.
No, I said there's a 4th one. I didn't realize there was a 5th one in the series.
Omen
that's
4.
That's a bad omen if ever I heard one.
Heyo. Omen 4, Armageddon 2000, and Omen 5, The Abomination. Came out in 83 and 85.
Probably well titled.
I'm sure it's not a fucking good movie. But the original Omen movie was a budget of $2.8 million, and it made $60.9 million. It was the 5th highest grossing film of 1976.
See, I kind of got the impression, and I could be wrong in this, and maybe you can. Well, I'm sure you can help. That Omen, particularly, well, maybe the trilogy was kind of more popular in the UK relatively than it was in the US. Discuss.
Well, keep in mind,
in the first one, they do move to the UK.
Yeah.
Yep. And they call it a British American film, whatever that means.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was born the year that The Omen 5 came out, so I got nothing.
I've moved, sorry, to
fine.
Plug in.
No, that's all right. And you were saying that a lot of this one was filmed in Michigan. I didn't realize that as I was watching it, and I live in Michigan. So I'd kind of be interested now to go back and see where these things were.
You can watch it again. Watch it many times over.
I think I've seen it enough. But
The Omen
what
4
like this,
doesn't even have Damien Thorne in it.
No, it's the sister.
Yeah, that's fucking stupid.
And then doesn't the 5 turn into the sister, like, starts protecting Damien? Like, that's when Damien gets worse. So she goes from being the younger sister to the older sister.
Right. Yeah.
How do they get made, these films?
Somebody says, "Oh fuck, I can make an Omen movie, Mr. Producer. Sure, let me. I'll take that check."
If you look on the Omen franchise page on Wikipedia, Omen 5 isn't even listed. That's funny to me.
Well, one of them was a TV movie, I thought. Kind of like the Species films.
Damien was the TV show, so maybe Omen 5 was a TV movie.
Yeah, I thought it went from being the TV movie to the inspiration and the jump off for the show.
I think you're right.
It's been a long time since I read up on it. Probably since we did the first Omen movie.
To Saul's point, there are no. So the box office, the box office numbers only show the United States. None of these have international.
Okay.
So unfortunately, fuck the dog on that one.
So part of the problem with 2, I think, is that they introduce too many varying storylines and too many characters with their own perspectives on things. Like, it goes from the 2 guys dying in the cave at the beginning, which is the jump off, and the finishing touch of one of those characters from the first film. And that should be a good lead into where Damien is now and stuff. But then they introduce too many characters that their whole purpose of being there is to cast the shadow on Damien and say, I think there's something wrong with this kid. I think this kid is the son of the devil. This person died. There's something wrong with this kid. Because we get the reporter who's dressed all in red for some weird reason and spend some time with her to then watch her immediately die. We have the person who knew her come in and talking to the mother for a bit, and then he immediately dies. And then we have the stuff that's going on in the factory. I think one of the guys used to be on the $6 Million Man. And people are there dying. And it's just it's a lot of random.
But you've answered your own question there, I think, if I may say, Corey, only in that they're there simply to die. They're
cannon fodder.
Yeah, and so they're just being primed as another, mucky, murderous set piece. That's their only purpose.
Yeah, but if we want to see what the story is supposed to be about, the raising of Damien, the turning of Damien to the cause of being the son of Satan, finding out himself, finding the symbol on his head, the 3 6s.
Which is a very powerful moment in any young man's life, I have to say.
followed more of the stuff at the Academy, that would have been something to focus on. Or if we had followed more of the stuff with the factory, that could have been something to focus on. But doing the two and then all the extrastitial stuff made it so that there wasn't a story there that really was compelling. There was elements that could have been, and any one of those elements might have been this is what makes this film good. But they just shoved too much shit in, and it equaled out to being like oatmeal that was tainted with a bunch of mix-ins instead of like something that's actual substantial.
But I wonder what kind of decision-making process, whether that was conscious, whether they thought we're gonna, fuck the storyline, we're gonna go for a high kill count because it's going to be big with adolescent and pre-adolescent boys, and that will be how it's popular. I have no idea, but that's my feeling about it.
I feel like it was probably an inexperienced filmmaker, either the director or the writers, who were just like, how do we jump this up to the next thing? And they probably talked about a lot of ideas in the room, and they didn't know to edit themselves, cut it back.
I mean, I'm sure that's absolutely true. But equally, I wasn't unhappy to revisit this film myself until I saw it, I should add, because it is it's a rite of passage for certainly for my generation of kids where I was from. It was really the stuff of playground chat, and actually, possibly in the way that Omen 1 wasn't. And so it's memorable perhaps for some of the wrong artistic reasons, but it was quite a thing when I was growing up for the reasons perhaps that we don't appreciate it now.
Well, yeah, and
that makes sense.
The first movie, as a kid, there's nobody really for me to relate to. I don't relate to Damien because he's just sort of like, he's there, we know that he's evil, but he's not a character that has any humanity to him in it. He doesn't talk, he doesn't really do anything, he just rides around on his fucking tricycle and knocks people down the steps. But it's about the things that are going on around him. In this one, at least, Damien has some agency, he has some personality. Mm-hmm. It's just that when he realizes, he sees this moment where he finds out that he's the beast, he's the son of a jackal, son of the devil, whatever, and he's like, no, and then he's like, all right, fuck it, cool, I'll just run with that because it gives me power, it makes me. But I can relate to that. I can relate to that though, because when I discovered that I was born of a jackal, my reaction was, it was actually could have been lifted from my own life. So, I felt great empathy with him at that point. Matt is actually the son of the lead singer of the band Jackal from the 90s.
It's not false.
Oh, really?
No, not at all. It's a complete lie.
Oh.
Great.
Okay.
I really wish it was true, though, right now. Good thing my dad doesn't listen to this.
No, that's true.
He was probably a big Jackal fan, though.
I would say he probably has a pinball machine of their likeness down in his basement somewhere.
Most likely. I got the Kiss one, so he can keep the Jackal one.
Yeah. God, I can't even remember the name of the Jackal song at this point.
Their one song?
Yeah, the one hit that they had.
To the Google. Down on Me?
Down on Me.
I was like, either that or it's the Lumberjack.
Down on Me could be read in various different ways.
Yeah.
No, it's only meant to be the one way.
Oh, really? Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
It's not even a double entendre. It's just
a single entendre.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Straight in there. All right. Are we meeting next week to discuss Omen 3?
Yeah, if you'd like. I guess that means that it's time to rate this film. It's a simple 0 to 5 scale, 5 being the highest. You can give a description if you'd like. Saul is our guest. You have to go first.
I'm going to give it a 2.
It's not that
do you want me to describe the number 2?
If you'd like to.
Or
It is after
It's kind of
1 and before
Do you
3.
do your 2 with a sharp angle at the bottom, or you do the swiggle
you
around
round-
so it looks almost
you
like
round
an
the
L
bottom?
in cursive?
I think I'm a sharp angle man. A sharp angle number 2 man
Fair enough.
Yeah.
myself. So a two from London.
You can
Speaking
give it
for all of London.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an average.
Fair enough.
I took earlier.
Corey, how about you?
Definitely as a kid, this rated high enough to stick with me throughout the years, although not enough to make me want to go and rewatch it a bunch of times. Watching it now, it's obvious the glaring plot holes and problems that it had. I'm going to go 1.5. I'm going to meet between the 2 that I probably should have gotten when I was younger and the 1 that I should give it today.
That was cryptic.
Yeah. I just gave it a 1 because this movie sucks. So
I see. Then you give the number and the description. I see what you mean.
yeah, you don't have to give a description.
No,
Corey,
I'm giving it 2 because I think it quite sucks, but I quite enjoyed it. It's still quite entertaining. It is quite an entertaining film.
Yeah, I didn't see this as a child, so I have no nostalgic enjoyment
That's because
out of
you're
this.
still a child, Matthew.
Yeah,
Relatively speaking.
Yeah. I see what you did there, but yeah. So it's
today.
yeah. So movie was just dog shit to me. But I totally want to see the third one.
But are you looking forward to doing number 3? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And do you want to try to get to 4 and 5?
Yeah. I mean, I would totally... 4 and 5 will not be worse than The Manos and The Hands of Fate, so I will watch those.
Just be aware that they really could be.
What's the best film that you've seen and reviewed on your podcast?
Well, the highest score went to Xanadu.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it.
Xanadu was our April Fool's episode, so if you could put 2 and 2 together.
I was going to say, because that's not... I mean, it might be horrific, but it's not a horror film.
Yeah, right. Well, okay,
Depends on how you look at it.
I'm looking back at our scores here. We give the original...
Halloween. I know you... Because I would have chosen Halloween, but I knew that you'd have done
Halloween,
it.
we gave 5s.
Wonderful film.
Carrie, I gave a 5. Corey gave a 4.
For what, sorry?
Carrie.
Carrie,
yeah. The original Carrie. Dale and Tucker versus Evil, we both gave pretty high scores to.
Yeah, I like some of the more off-the-wall stuff. There was the one that we did. I don't remember the name of it offhand, which is too bad because it was the name of the town. But there was a one where everybody was getting possessed by the sounds on the radio.
Fuck, I knew that's the one you were talking about too.
It Follows, I think, is probably my favorite modern horror movie, as far as the fact that it did something so interesting. Visually, it was great. The sound was excellent. It surprised me at how good it was. As far as stuff that we've done on the show, that's one of my top ones.
You were talking about Pontypool.
Pontypool, yes. That's a great movie. What was the one about where they were doing the autopsy in the
Autopsy of Jane Doe?
corners? Yeah, that's a really good one.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we all gave 10 out of 10 boners.
That's true.
Matt and I were drunk.
Because it deserves it, though.
No, that's true.
Some things you do because a movie has earned it.
Yeah.
It earns that place is legendary. But the movies that I find are my favorites, the ones that I would go back to and rewatch a lot, are the stranger stuff or the comedy stuff. What was the Deathgasm?
Deathgasm, yeah, that was also a really good movie.
Yeah, I'll rewatch Deathgasm before I'll put on Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That's true. Sinister, we gave really good scores to.
Did you do California with a K?
Yep, we did.
What did you give that? I noticed that on the list.
Fuck, I gotta find it now. Please hold.
I remember.
California. I gave it a 3.
Surprisingly
Corey
pleased
gave
with
it a 2.
You gave it a 2.
Yeah, Corey's a dick.
What did you give it?
I gave it a 3.
Okay.
So Matt's a smaller dick.
Less of a dick, yeah.
I'm going to give it 3.5, even though we're not doing it, and I haven't seen it for about 8 years.
Do you just want to go through and give a score to every movie that we've already talked about?
Yeah. I've done it. I've got it written down here. You ready?
Yep, ready when you are.
No, I sometimes think, now that we've been doing this for a few years, our views of what our expectations are from horror movies, I think, have probably changed some since we started doing the show. We appreciate things a little bit more with originality, with the idea of like, all right, I've always loved A Nightmare on Elm Street, but how does Nightmare on Elm Street hold up now compared to the rose-colored glasses that I had rose and green, that I'd had watching it younger? And do I maybe want to go back and say, but in relationship to how many other things I've seen that have tried to pull off of it, does it deserve to be higher up because it was the original?
Oh my God, I think that...
Yeah, that happened. He has some computer issues.
Is that a stage death? Is that live? Is that an on-air death? Is that one of the things you do? One of the hosts take their own life at the end of every episode.
Yeah, it's podcast seppuku. He moved. So Corey was originally in California, moved back to Michigan, so he's still putzing with his setup. So once in a while, Corey blows up. Just miraculously, it took us an hour and a half to do it this time. I don't even remember. He was on some shit though, I'm sure. He's back already. That was good. Good.
Better?
Yeah, pick up where you left off, buddy.
I don't know where I was going.
Yeah,
it was basically just, you do this for too long, and I feel like this with Jack and Dan is the way that they score worst episode ever on the Simpsons stuff, is the HIPAA scale hasn't changed, their criteria hasn't changed, but maybe their feelings about you're so many episodes in that you grade things with a harsher tone because you've just seen it all so much, where one episode might actually be a better score if you had done it at the beginning, but because you're getting to it 3 years later, that it's rated lower because your feelings overall have been colored by how much you've had to slog through of so many shitty episodes, and you see the shittiest easier than you used to.
Mm-hmm. I feel you.
Yeah. On that note, Corey, you should probably read the outro.
Oh, shit. Don't expect me to do that.
You can contact us by leaving us a voicemail at 805-328-3966. Email us at pot@gncast.com. You can leave us a message on the website. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Podcast of Terror. You can subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any of your favorite podcatchers. Leave us feedback, please. If you leave feedback, I'll read it online. Miraculously, two of our iTunes reviews disappeared. So I'm on to you, iTunes.
Motherfuckers.
Yeah, right?
They don't want that trail left that people might actually see them and know. Now that we know that everything that you do online stays with you forever, like a Twitter post, they don't want anybody to know that they actually not only listened to the show, but gave a shit enough to rate it.
He ain't wrong.
I should have said at the outset, you can follow Alan Stoob on Twitter at Nazi Hunter Alan.
We were getting.
So I'm saying it now instead.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Normally there's a well, now that you threw me off.
Oh, sorry, man.
No, you're good. You can also go to bit.ly/potreview. All subscription options and links can be found at gncast.com/subscribe. You can follow the entire network under the Galactic Network. You can also go to amazon.podcastterror.com, shop like you normally would. We get a portion of that. Costs you nothing. Saul?
I didn't realize that you hadn't finished the outro, and I've just inserted an additional AOB plug.
It's all part of your British charm. Now, would you like to talk about where people can find you again?
What my postal address?
Well, yeah, if you'd like, wherever you want people to catch up with you. If you want someone to send you some mail, you can put it here. That's fine. You can find me. So at Nazi Hunter Alan is my alter ego handle. I'm also at Saul Wordsworth, and
beyond that, you just have to shout really loud.
I'm going to start yelling as soon as we're done here.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it'll get to you. Corey, what do you want to push today?
Stool. No,
Jesus
I am.
Christ.
I am going to be guesting. I don't know what the release schedule is. I'm going to be guesting on the Brokebot Mountain podcast with Phil Rude and David from Movie Go Round are the guys who host that show. And David in particular, doing Movie Go Round is what I would consider an actual movie critic versus what we do here. So it will be interesting to sit down and talk with these guys about a substantive film. We're going to be doing Being John Malkovich. So
Never seen it. Never seen it.
This podcast is not hosted by Phil Rude, drummer of AC/DC, correct?
I can't say
this is a
yes or
different
no
one?
to that.
Okay.
Everybody deserves to have their privacy, Matt.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so I'm going to be guesting on the show tomorrow, and I'm not sure when it'll hit their feeds. But their show is very fun and interesting in the way that the choices that they make. The show started out being a discussion about the episodes of Westworld on HBO, and then in between seasons, obviously, you have to do something else. So the stuff they get to is kind of like the dreamier, more thought-provoking or confusing films. I was just listening to their discussion on Donnie Darko, and it's a good time. So I'm hoping to have fun and bring something to them that I obviously don't bring here.
Oh, boy. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and Untapped. I'm at the Lifeguard. Next week, we're going to talk about Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions, and I can continue my ongoing complaints about not getting a picture with him after paying a large amount of money to do so. Yeah, such is life. So that's going to do
But
it.
hugs are free, Matt. Hugs are free.
Probably not. It was probably $20 to hug Clive Barker.
Would have been worth it.
Smell him for $35. So that's going to do it for another episode of the podcast here. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Stay scary, everybody.
Goodbye.